On the 1st of August 1798, the Battle of the Nile commenced, marked by its unusual night engagement between British and French fleets. This critical confrontation was part of the larger French Revolutionary Wars, which saw many European nations, including Britain, pitted against revolutionary France. As dawn broke over the Nile, Admiral Horatio Nelson commanded the British fleet with resolve, plotting their attack against the larger French forces. Nelson's strategic brilliance was essential to countering the vast array of French ships led by Vice Admiral François-Paul Brueys d'Aillon. In the lead-up to battle, Vice Admiral François-Paul Brueys d'Aillon gathered his French officers, instilling confidence and exemplifying the spirit of the Revolutionary Navy. His keen understanding of naval tactics set the stage for a fierce confrontation against the British forces. As the battle unfolded, the British fleet executed a bold maneuver, approaching the French ships under the cover of night. The element of surprise became a crucial advantage, catching the French Navy off guard in their anchored positions. The first shots rang out as British cannons fired in coordinated volleys, marking the beginning of the Battle of the Nile. The sounds echoed across the waters, signaling an all-out engagement between the two powerful navies. Initial stages of the battle saw fierce exchanges, with both sides suffering casualties. The British aimed to capitalize on their surprise tactics, while the French struggled to mount an organized defense under the increasing assault. Nelson, bold in his tactics, ordered his fleet to break the French line, a maneuver that would give them a tactical advantage. This decision reflected his unparalleled naval strategy, which had become legendary in British naval history. As the British broke through the French line, chaos ensued on the enemy ships, which were now caught in a crossfire from multiple British vessels. The French crew worked desperately to regain control of their ships amid the spiraling violence. The battle raged on, lasting throughout the day and into the night, with both fleets displaying tenacity and determination. However, the British naval supremacy began to shine through as they maintained higher morale and strategic positioning. As night fell, the British fleet, under Nelson's command, managed to inflict serious damage on the French fleet, crippling their defenses and morale. The tide of the battle clearly favored the British by this point. Desperate to regroup and salvage the situation, Brueys attempted to organize a counterattack, but the cohesive power of the British fleet overwhelmed them, demonstrating Nelson's leadership. In a bold bid for advantage, Nelson commanded his fleet to sail in a pincer movement, encircling the French ships. The maneuver would ultimately seal the fate of the French Navy at Aboukir Bay. As the battle continued, the British naval strategy of targeting specific French vessels began to show results. Fires started breaking out on several French ships, adding to the chaos on their side. With the dawn of the second day approaching, the British fleet had established a decisive upper hand, forcing remnants of the French Navy to struggle for any semblance of organized defense. The final hours of the battle saw the British forces continuing to press their advantage, leading to a series of surrender efforts from the French fleet. The atmosphere was heavy with uncertainty and trepidation on the French ships. As the day wore on, Vice Admiral Brueys finally faced the grim reality of his fleet's situation, and orders for surrender were reluctantly given. Nelson's tactical genius had won the day. By the afternoon, the British fleet celebrated their hard-fought victory. The news spread quickly, as the impact of the battle would resonate throughout the naval powers of Europe, foreshadowing Britain's dominance at sea. The aftermath of the Battle of the Nile solidified Nelson's reputation as one of Britain's most celebrated naval commanders, changing the dynamics of naval warfare and affecting France's position in the Mediterranean. The French Navy's defeat at Aboukir Bay marked a turning point in the French Revolutionary Wars, with Britain gaining crucial naval supremacy that would last for years and solidifying their strategic dominance in the Mediterranean. As news of the defeat reached France, the implications were profound, affecting national morale and strategies in both naval and land campaigns, while sowing the seeds of British dominion. Despite the defeat, the French would regroup and continue their campaign, but the loss at the Nile would remain a pivotal moment in their revolutionary history, shaping subsequent naval strategies. The Battle of the Nile set a precedent in naval warfare, emphasizing the necessity for well-coordinated maneuvers and the importance of morale among crews, shaping tactics for battles to come. Admiral Nelson returned to Britain a celebrated hero, receiving accolades for his leadership and innovative tactics, influencing generations of naval officers who followed. The repercussions of the battle reached beyond the Mediterranean, prompting European powers to reassess their naval capabilities and alliances, reshaping the geopolitical landscape of the era. The legacy of the Battle of the Nile continued to resonate through British naval culture, inspiring pride and a sense of invincibility that would define their maritime history for decades. In France, the loss motivated naval reform efforts with the aim of revitalizing their fleet and strategies for future confrontations, leading to renewed vigor in their naval policies. The Battle of the Nile became a defining moment in naval history, a symbol of leadership, strategy, and the relentless pursuit of victory. It foreshadowed future engagements in the Revolutionary Wars. As darkness fell on the evening of August 1st, 1798, the British fleet silently approached the French position at Aboukir Bay, shrouded in mist and confusion. Admiral Nelson, aboard his flagship, the HMS Vanguard, gave the signal to engage, his heart racing with the weight of destiny upon him. With the flash of cannon fire illuminating the night sky, the battle erupted, British ships navigating through the darkness towards their targets with precision and resolve. French crews awoke to the shocking reality of warfare, scrambling to man their defenses, a sense of confusion gripping the ranks as the British opened fire. Vice Admiral Brueys, assessing the situation, sprang into action, but faced the daunting task of rallying his men against a formidable enemy. As the battle raged on, the British took advantage of their superior seamanship, outmaneuvering the French with deft tactics. Nelson's tactics were remarkable, positioning his ships to rake fire across the French line, devastating their fleet in swift succession. Despite their valiant attempts, the French found their formations increasingly disrupted, leading to severe losses and disorganization. The British, fueled by their initial successes, pressed on with bold resolve, launching a second wave of attacks on the beleaguered French. As casualties mounted, panic set in among the French sailors. Chaos reigned aboard as orders became harder to follow amidst the din of battle. In the early hours of August 2, the decision-making became critical as the French fleet's cohesion continued to deteriorate. Nelson, sensing victory, was relentless, directing his fleet to pursue the retreating French with unwavering determination. The French flagship took on significant damage, its sails tattered as despair began to spread among the crew witnessing their helplessness. Brueys, realizing the dire situation, attempted to rally his men, urging them to hold their line as long as possible against the British onslaught. The British fleet, with renewed vigor, executed tactical maneuvers, systematically dismantling remaining French defenses with precision strikes. By midday, the British had managed to isolate several French ships, leaving them defenseless against concentrated fire. With their lines broken, a wave of despair washed over the French fleet as morale plummeted to new lows. As the sun began to set on August 2nd, surrender became the only option for the few remaining French ships, marking a historical turning point in naval warfare. Brueys, facing the inevitable, made one last attempt to negotiate terms, but his crew was too demoralized to respond adequately. As night fell again, the British celebrated their hard-won victory, knowing it would change the course of naval history. In the aftermath, the impact of the battle resonated through the ranks of both naval forces, changing strategies and inspiring future generations of sailors. The British victory at the Battle of the Nile not only enhanced Nelson's reputation, but also signaled a turning point in British naval dominance in the Mediterranean. Looking ahead, British naval strategies began to thoroughly integrate the lessons learned from the battle, emphasizing agility and morale. In France, the aftermath prompted urgent reforms within the Navy, as leaders recognized the need to adapt in response to their losses. Ultimately, the Battle of the Nile became a pivotal moment, reshaping national identities and naval doctrines of both nations for years to come. As the clock struck midnight on August 1st, the British fleet stealthily approached the French ships anchored at Aboukir Bay, the night sky illuminated by shimmering stars reflecting off the calm waters. With a sudden blast, British cannons roared to life, their fires lighting up the night sky as they aimed at the French vessels caught unprepared. Caught off guard, the French crew scrambled on deck, struggling to fasten sails and man their guns as the British attack mounted. Admiral Nelson, aboard his flagship, watched intently as his ships surged forward, executing his orders with precision and relentless speed. On the French flagship, Vice Admiral Bruys d'Aiguillon tried to coordinate his crew amidst the escalating chaos, issuing commands, but confusion reigned. By the break of dawn, the situation for the French fleet worsened, with several ships damaged and their formations in disarray. Nelson capitalized on the British momentum, directing his ships to attack the flanks of the French line methodically, instilling fear among the French crew. The French morale began to plummet as cannons boomed relentlessly, with many sailors reconsidering their desperate fight for survival. As midday approached, the battle continued with Nelson maintaining overwhelming pressure on the French ships, effectively cutting off their escape routes. Vice Admiral Bruys, realizing the dire situation, gathered his officers to discuss a potential plan for retreat, yet confidence was faltering. With the afternoon sun high in the sky, the British fleet intensified their assault, boarding French ships in fierce combat that ensued on multiple fronts. As night fell on August 2nd, fires blazed on the water, signaling the devastation upon the French fleet, with their surrender imminent. Admiral Nelson's resolve solidified the British victory, with sailors cheering, recognizing the significance of their triumph as the sounds of battle faded. In the wake of the battle, Admiral Nelson reflected on the victory, realizing its implications for British naval supremacy in the Mediterranean. Meanwhile, Bruys struggled with the aftermath, attempting to regroup with the remnants of his fleet, knowing the battle's outcome would haunt him. News of Nelson's victory spread rapidly, instilling national pride in Britain and a feeling of despair in France, marking a shift in momentum in the Revolutionary Wars. The battle's aftermath saw France reconsidering its naval strategies, leading to discussions on reforms and how best to rebuild their naval forces. Admiral Nelson's personal esteem rose to legendary status within the Royal Navy, leading future generations to study his tactics in naval warfare. Throughout the years, the Battle of the Nile would serve as a vital case study on naval discipline, strategy, and the crucial role of leadership in battle. The loss at Nile shaped a generation of French naval leaders who sought to revive their naval power, emphasizing strategy and morale in their training. As years passed, the memory of the Battle of the Nile grew more significant, becoming embedded in both British and French naval lore, symbolizing enduring naval rivalry. Overall, the Battle of the Nile not only marked a decisive victory for Britain, but also established a narrative of honor, courage, and strategic brilliance that defined naval warfare for decades.